Before we begin today's keynote, it's my pleasure to share with you the State of the Organization report. I'm going to keep this relatively brief. So our financial state is really healthy. Thanks to your financial support, we have the resources to cover over 3 months of salaries and operating expenses, a leadership transition, and lost conference revenue. That leadership transition, don't read into that. I mean, that's just, we have the money there. Now, where does our money come from? It comes from you, and specifically it comes from your grants. Member dues, and the best year, that covers maybe 15% of our expenses. Conference registrations, that covers about 15%. The conference itself, your registration fees cover like a third of that expense. Even the conference is mostly grants. Now, that means basically about 3/4 of our expenses are covered by grants. Now, where does it go? It basically goes to our programs. You're experiencing the most expensive program right now. And I want to say thank you to the great leadership of our finance director, Champ Connect, and our development associate, Zoe Williams. Thank you. And I also want to say thank you to you. It's through your support that we can manifest our vision for the future through learning and through action. GIA's vision is led by our values, and our vision for the future shows measurably increased resources for BIPOC communities. GIA is participating with a series of grant makers in the Racial Equity Coding Project, along with Doris Duke Charitable Foundation. The project includes a new measurement framework that helps grant makers to track their own progress in racially equitable grant making. We're expanding the participating cohort now and will soon release the measurement framework for your use, your adaptation, and your feedback. And this helps us to move from learning to acting and also to telling our own stories. So reach out to me to learn more about it and to participate. We also host about 3 to 4 racial equity in arts funding workshop series each year. They're co-facilitated by Vice President Nadia Alokta and Senior Program Manager Sherilyn Seeley, and they sell out every time. In November, we'll host our second Pro-BIPOC Arts Funding Workshop Series in partnership with GIA Board alum Justin Lang, who is one of the first leaders who was so central to GIA's embrace of racial equity in the first place, but just one of the great leaders. So many of them are here with us right now, and I'd also like to call into the room Claudine Brown, a great leader who's essential to this work. The Pro-BIPOC Arts Funding Workshop Series uses critical race theory as the conceptual frame and organizing as the action. GIA believes the future is one in which our field have become investors in culture, broadening who receives grants beyond nonprofit organizations to include artists, activists, small businesses, solidarity economy communities. To make this vision a reality, GIA has engaged the national grant-making field on the solidarity economy and how to support it. Last year, we released our commissioned Solidarity Not Charity report, and since then, we've partnered with Art.coop on Study into Action and Move the Money, a series of funder discussions in which scholars, advocates, organizers, and artists make tangible the principles laid out in the report to more directly influence changes in grant makers' practices. GIA is also working to broaden the means and tools of support beyond just grants. So we partnered with Mission Investors Exchange and Upstart CoLab to present the first Arts in the Creative Economy Mission Investing Institute. Now GIA is partnering with Kenneth Rainin Foundation and the Serdna Foundation in an impact investing learning community of practice. The group meets regularly for continued education. It'll serve as a space for peer dialogue on one another's impact investing and to collectively strategize future investing. Again, reach out to me to learn more and to participate. GIA's vision also includes advocacy for changes to public policy and practice. We successfully advocated to the U.S. Department of Education to include its roadmap to reopening handbook guidance the importance of providing access to the arts, to make explicit how racialized this access was prior to the pandemic, and that addressing this inequity is essential to effective reopening. Thanks to the hard work of our advocacy consultants, Penn Hill Group, and the members of our Arts Education Funders Coalition, GIA worked with Representative Suzanne Bonamici on the development of the Arts Education for All Act, the broadest arts education policy bill ever introduced in Congress. And the representative also asked GIA and our Arts Education Funders Coalition to inform her upcoming CREATE Act, which initially proposed to support organizations' acquisition or development of facilities. And we told her the only way that that would create value is to ensure that community voice informs any facilities development efforts, and that any support has to include funding for operations, for maintenance, for repairs, and for the people who work in those facilities. And so she listened. GIA also supports the Cultural Policy Action Lab, a leadership and professional development community of practice program for public sector workers who seek to advance racial equity through arts, culture, and public policy. Now, our expanded support for advocacy for changes to public policies are part of our vision that art should be supported as part of everything. GIA continues to see signs of progress in influencing the larger grant-making field to take seriously support for culture as part of support for oppressed communities. This summer, I was asked to join the board of directors of United Philanthropy Forum, which is the largest network serving philanthropy in America, consisting of nearly 100 regional and national philanthropy-serving organizations. So GIA is now part of a board that includes Grantmakers for Effective Organizations, Native Americans in Philanthropy, ABFI, Hispanics in Philanthropy, Funders Together to End Homelessness, Philanthropy for Active Civic Engagement, the Funders Network, Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, Robert Sterling Clark Foundation, among others. This is a huge affirmation of grantmakers in the arts place in the larger funding ecosystem and the seriousness with which our field are taking support for culture as part of support for oppressed communities. Now, when I first greeted you as the incoming director of Grantmakers in the Arts in our conference in Detroit in 2017, I said one of the reasons I wanted to work with you is that you believed that artists are workers that deserve to be paid. And this has become an increasing part of your work, so much so that it was such a running motif in your proposals for conference sessions that our Vice President Nadia Loca just bundled them together into a day-long pre-conference. We are so grateful for your support for artists as workers. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the great work of the members of our Support for Individual Artists Committee and for our Senior Program Manager, Sherilyn Seeley. Thank you. Grantmakers in the Arts is excited that we've now launched our new GIA Reader, an online platform for arts grantmakers dedicating to creating a more just future in the field. It includes the Future of the Field blog series, among other articles, podcasts, and more. The GIA took a year to conceptualize the redesign of the Reader. I want to thank the great leadership of Vice President Nadia Alokta and Communications Manager Jamie Sharp. Now, the most valuable resource required for all of these efforts is people. I've just shared with you a small part of what GIA does all year and a small part of the roles that the team members play. How do we do all this? Well, after the conference, we close for a week. We close for the last week of March, the last week of August, the week between Christmas and New Year's. We close every Friday in the summer. We also offer unlimited paid vacation days, unlimited wellness days. And why do we do these things? It's the only way we can get the GIA team members to rest. The GIA team members are ever increasingly productive, and their work is of ever increasing quality. None of this, our financial health, our strong programming, our making room for team regeneration, none of this is my doing. All of this is thanks to the GIA team. Every positive experience you've had with GIA is thanks to the members of the GIA team. So let's show them our thanks. Fantastic. Vice President and Director of Programs, Nadia Alokta. Senior Program Manager, Sherilyn Seeley. Director of Operations and Finance, Champ Connect. Communications Manager Jamie Sharp. Development Associate Zoe Williams. On behalf of the entire GIA community, I see you, I honor you, and I thank you. Now, I would like to thank our board chair, Vice President of Strategy, Impact, and Communications at the Victoria Foundation, the chair of Grant Makers in the Arts Board of Directors, Sharnita Johnson.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I am so proud to be chair of the Grant Makers in the Arts Board. You have no idea that I get to work with this amazing team and this amazing leader and an amazing board. And I have scripted remarks, and I promise to stick to them, but I've already gone off. So, I'm gonna be presenting the 2022 board report, and I'd like to thank our board officers, Vice Chair Tariana Navas-Neves of Denver Arts and Venues, our treasurer, Long Chu of Houston Endowment, and our secretary, Keita Sullivan of New England Foundation for the Arts. I'd also like to thank our executive committee at-large members, Roberto Bedoya, City of Oakland, and Emiko Ono, William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. And I'd like to welcome our newest board members joining for their first 3-year term, Amber Hamilton, Executive Director of the Memphis Music Initiative, and Glenice Pagan Ortiz, Executive Director of Philanthropy Puerto Rico. GIA has a rigorous process of selecting new board members from among the dozens of quality nominations we receive every year. Candidates were selected from dozens of nominations submitted by the membership and recommended by the nominating committee. Serving on the nominating committee were co-chairs Michelle Coffey, Lambent Foundation, and Adriana Gallego, Arts Foundation of Tucson in Southern Arizona. Along with Kristen Sakota, Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture, and Eleanor Savage, the Jerome Foundation. Their recommendations were reviewed and approved by the GIA Board of Directors to be placed in nomination and voted on by the GIA membership. Their recommendations were reviewed and approved. GIA strives for a governing board that reflects the diversity of the field it serves. Consideration was given to funder type, funder size, funder focus, geography, personal experience, and leadership, gender, ethnicity, and age, among other criteria. And we are sorry to say goodbye to our colleagues who are finishing their 6th year on the board. Jamie Dempsey, Arizona Community Foundation. And Ken May of the Central Carolina Community Foundation. Jamie and Ken, please rise, and we'd like to give you a round of applause. If our current board members would please stand for a round of applause. And for every alum board member, please stand for a round of applause.